Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam. This is your brother Sheikh Khalid Yassin speaking on my Facebook live platform. And today our discussion or our subject is that no one, whether government, whether institution, whether a religious hierarchy, no one has the right to control and to dictate the Islamic narrative. Let us talk about that. Let us understand what that means. There is a verse of the Quran, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, where Allah He said, La ikraha fid din. La ikraha fid din. There is no compulsion in the religion. قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ. Guidance has been made clear from error. Let's just deal with that subject. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to graduate from a university to understand that meaning. There's no compulsion in the religion. We cannot compel non-Muslims to be Muslims, even if they live in a Muslim country. We cannot force Muslims to follow a particular persuasion of Islam, regardless of the stature that we might have, the amount of money that we may have, or the legislative powers that we may have in our particular country. You may be able to control the scholars. You may be able to control the people in your country. You may be able to control the narrative in your country because you have that kind of authoritative, dictatorial power. But is that Islamic? Absolutely not. No Islamic ruler, no Islamic governor, no Muslim ruler and no Muslim governor and no Muslim government has the right to control the Islamic narrative. That's our discussion today. Now, some people may want to say, Sheikh, can you be a little more specific? No, you don't have to be more specific. No one that we're talking to in our audience, you're not stupid. You're not dense. You're not ignorant. You have access to the internet. You can read. You can read the headlines. You can read the articles. You can communicate with people all over the world. You can ask, you can understand, you can follow, you can access information. The technology that we have now is global. No one can hide information very long unless they have a totalitarian government that controls all the means of communication in that particular country. And even then, still people have the means and the ways to access global information. So just in general, no Muslim ruler, no Muslim governor, no Muslim government, no hierarchy of scholars have the right to impose their narrative upon Muslims around the world. No one. No one can tell them, no one can tell us how to understand the Quran. No one can force us to their understanding of the Sunnah. Not today, not in the 21st century. They could do that. They have done that. And other people will try to do that if you are foolish. But brothers and sisters, I'm telling you, especially those that's living in the free world that have governments and constitutional liberties and privileges, we are not donkeys and we are not monkeys. We are educated people who have access to the Quran, access to the sources of the Sunnah, the Islamic sciences, in the Arabic language and in other languages. And we are not subordinate to any Muslim government regarding our understandings, regarding our access, regarding our implementation, our practice of the Islamic religion and the Islamic system. This is the point that I'm making. Now, those of you who want to argue on behalf of madhabs, then follow that madhab. We don't have to argue. It's your right. It's absolutely your right to follow any persuasion that you like. And even you can call it Islamic, even if it's not Islamic. You have the right to follow it. No one can castigate. No one will insult you. They should not insult you. Each one of us have the ability to evaluate, assess, understand, collaborate, cooperate, what they believe to be the Islamic system and what they believe to be legitimate. And if there's organized religion in a particular country, and there are scholars who have collaborated together and are cooperating together, those scholars have the right to come together and determine, based upon their knowledge of this and their familiarity of the sources, to determine what is Islamic and what is not Islamic. They do have the right to do that. In a free, we want to call it democratic, because the British or the Americans or the Western world, they don't determine for us classifications and terminologies that make our Islam legitimate. Every Muslim country that considers themselves to be free and open and privileged according to a constitution, you can use the term democratic if you want to. But the fact is, every country that calls itself democratic has a different understanding, a different approach, a different persuasion, and a different application of the terminology democratic. But even those countries, they don't impose their form of democracy on anyone. And no one can impose their form or their persuasion or their interpretation of Islam on anyone. And it doesn't matter what part of the Islamic practice that you might be able to influence or control. You see, because the Arabs no longer have any control over the understanding of the Quran, even in the Arabic language, because the most authoritative, skilled, knowledgeable people in the world in the Arabic language, they're not even Arabs. Just ask anyone who's an authority in the Arabic language, and he will tell you that the highest source of Nahu and Sarf, it is not even an Arab. It's a non-Arab. His name is Sibawayh. A non-Arab established a standard of Arabic grammar and speech and structure that is the highest level in the Arabic world, if we want to judge the issue of Arabic language. And I just want to humbly say to you that today, more non-Arabs have been awarded certificates for the recitation of the Quran than the Arabs. So it's no longer a mystique. It's no longer some kind of a control that Arabs have even over their language, or the Quran, or the sources of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The most distinguished muhaddith of the 21st century, according to the majority of scholars, was a man by the name of Sheikh Nasruddin Albani. That means he's from Albania. Considered to be the most authoritative muhaddith in the 21st century. And hadith is definitely a source of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, along with the Quran. Imam Bukhari was not an Arab. Imam Muslim was not an Arab. Imam Nasa'i was not an Arab. We can just go on and on and on to remove this whole myth about the power and the distinction of Arabs in regard to the Arabic language. And brothers and sisters, this whole idea that Mecca and Medina are the holy cities, we don't have any holy cities. We have cities that are sacred to us. Why? Because in one of those cities there is the Haram, the Kaaba, which is inside the Haram in Mecca, the sacred area where we perform rites. And it has also the areas of Arafat and Mina. You see, these sacred areas, Safa and Marwa and Mina, these sacred areas, because those are the areas that's required for us when we are performing our Hajj. They're sacred because of that. But outside of Hajj, these areas are not sacred. Like they have some kind of holy status in the world, like some other holy sanctuaries in the world. No. We go there because our father Ibrahim alayhi salam, he established this by the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He laid the foundation of the Kaaba. That was his sunnah. And we are people of the Abrahamic religion. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abraham was our father. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam upheld that tradition. And so we Muslims are performing Hajj in the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed it to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, based upon the original tradition of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Nothing holy about that. It is a sacrament. It is a sacred practice and ritual that we perform. But beyond the sacred ritual itself, there's nothing holy about the area. We visit the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ as we call it ziyarah. It is a respect that we pay to the Prophet ﷺ. It is not wajib on any Muslim that goes for Hajj or Umrah to go to Medina. No, it's a courtesy. It's a courtesy that everyone wants to do, to go to the city of our Prophet ﷺ, a city where he made hijrah to, and a city where he passed away at. You see, a city that was established, the first Islamic state, and where the Prophet ﷺ there, he's buried there. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu is buried there. And Umar radiallahu anhu is buried there. And many of the companions radiallahu anhum is buried there. But that doesn't make it a sacred city. Doesn't make it a holy city. We don't have a holy book. We don't have a holy prophet. We don't have a holy city. There's nothing holy. The Christians came up with this concept of holy. No, sacred means from a sacrament, a religious trust that we committed ourselves to. That's called a sacrament. That makes it sacred, a sacred obligation, a sacred ritual. That's it. But that area, the Jazira al-Arabiya, that area called the Jazira, the Arabic Peninsula, and the area that houses, or the area in which the Haram in Mecca is, and where the city of Medina is at, this is not scripturally a holy area. No, it's a place where Muslims, we face that area because the Kaaba is there. We're not facing that area because it is Saudi Arabia or what it was before the Saudi clan or the Saudi dynasty before they came about. We were not facing them. They were not our holy rulers. They were not the people who were the holy authority. We don't have anything like a holy or sacred authority in Islam. We don't have anything like that. We don't have a clergy. We don't have a holy, sacred clergy. We don't have anything like that. Whoever's telling you that, that's their narrative. To brainwash you and indoctrinate you, to have you doing things that have no Islamic basis or substantiation. All Muslims should respect the government, which has the responsibility of coordinating the Hajj and the Umrah. All of us should respect that country because that's a tremendous responsibility to host the Hajj and the Umrah, to maintain those sacred places so that they could be accessed by pilgrims from all over the world. So we must respect that country for their effort, for their investment, and for their responsibility. But there's nothing sacred about that. There's no religious authority attached to that. But if it's in a country, we have to get a visa for that country. We understand that. And we have to behave in a way that's consistent with the visa, the behavior that's required. We have to be compliant with the behavior of that visa, that visa dictates. While we are in that country, like any other country, we must comply with the constitutional, sovereign laws of that country while we are there. But that is not a sacred issue. That's a diplomatic issue, one that is given to every country that you enter. If you go to a country, they tell you if you have to have a visa to enter that country and who can enter that country and how you should behave while you're in that country. And the same goes for the country that governs the area where Mecca and Medina is at. We have to respect them. But they are not, by default, the ones who dictate the Islamic narrative. If the Haram was in Palestine, or the Haram was in Egypt, or the Haram was anywhere, they would not have the right to dictate the Islamic narrative. So my conversation today is not about denigrating, disrespecting any Muslim country or any Muslim government. We can't do that. We don't do that. We don't denigrate. We don't insult. We don't undermine. We don't do that. But at the same token, those Muslim countries, whoever they are, whatever their historical legacy is, they do not individually or collectively have the right to control and regulate the Islamic narrative in the world. No, every group of Muslims have a right to read, reflect, assess, evaluate, and follow and implement Islam according to what understandings that they have of the sources of Islam through their relevant particular scholars. Every group of Muslims have the right to do that. And no one from the Muslims, whoever they are, have the right to impose their narrative on another group of Muslims. That's what we're talking about today. We are not the monkeys, and we're not the donkeys, and we're not subordinate to any hierarchy of clergy in the world. We don't care what name they put on it. And just for the record, brothers and sisters, we need to know that there are Western powers that have influenced Muslim governments. And through that, they have influenced and taken a certain amount of control over the application of our religion. Western powers have done that through collaboration, through social, political, intellectual collaboration. Our system of life has been reinterpreted, has been modified, and now it is even being controlled. And I have spoken about this, that in the day that we're living in now, there's a new religious cartel. Just like the Catholics had a cartel on religion. Just historically understand what that meant. When the Catholic Church had control of the religious narrative, what did they do? Well, those who want to control the religious narrative of Islam, they're going to do the same thing that the Catholic Church has done. No different. Because those that want authority, they want complete authority. Those who want authority, they want complete authority. And they will annihilate, undermine, eradicate all opposition to their narrative. Whoever they are, read between the lines. Well, we Muslims in the free world, we are not accepting that. And I thank God every single day to be a Muslim living in the constitutional free world. That means where thoughts are free, where speaking is free, where feeling, communication, network is free, where writing a book and expressing one's ideas and documenting them and distributing them is free. That means we have the open constitutional privilege. And we don't have to place the pictures, the photos, the emblems, the icons of anyone in our homes or in our offices and plant them inside the minds of our family and our children and the generations in order to impose a psychological authority in their minds. We're not obligated to do that. With due respect, we listen to the scholars and we respect the scholars. They are our fathers. But even the scholars, they cannot all get together and form a hierarchy, a religious hierarchy, and impose their thinking upon us. No one can do that. Now, if we Muslim reverts in the world today, if we didn't understand that, then that means 60 years ago, well, guess what? We understand now. Because we have grandchildren and great-grandchildren that we're responsible for. And I'm telling my great-grandchildren, I'm telling my grandchildren, and I'm telling my children, and I'm telling Muslims of my generation that we are not obligated to follow any religious hierarchy in the world, whether in our own country or anywhere else. There's no compulsion in the religion. We have to tolerate. We have to respect. Now, when we have authority in our land, then we can apply some authority to the regulation of the religion, the respect of the religion, the parameters of the religion, if we have authority in that land. But we cannot take that authority and extend it out to the rest of the world as if because we have some power, some sovereignty, some resources, some influence, that we can just make that sovereignty, that power, that authority, that influence, we can make that global and we can dictate the Islamic narrative? No. No one can do that. Now, brothers and sisters, if you are dense, if you are illiterate, if you are blind, if you are silly, if you are naive, or you just stupid, follow what you want to. But common sense tells us that when we're free and we've been made free, we don't come under the subordination of somebody else and go inside the prison of ignorance and subjugation. We don't do that. Now, I'm being very respectful, very cognizant, but I am a free man. And we Muslims in the Western world, we are a free people, psychologically, morally, ethically, religiously, and otherwise. Part of that freedom that we've been given has been etched out and articulated by a very clear, distinct constitution. And we practice our Islamic freedom, privilege, within the context and relevant to the structure of society where we live. And I'm telling new Muslims, don't allow anyone from somewhere else, because of what they wear, because of what they say, and what they host and their history or their language or their institutions to come inside your communities, to come inside your home, and to come inside your religious places and govern and dictate the Islamic narrative. No, we will develop and cultivate the Islamic narrative in our countries. Now, if other people from around the world, they accept to do that, that's them. They make that decision. They subordinate themselves. But us in the free world and those who are new Muslims, you have leaders. You have moral, mature, educated, dignified, influential, free Muslim leaders that can advise you, and you don't have to follow anybody's narrative. Now, other Muslims who want to dress like somebody, they want to act like somebody, they want to follow the dictates of somebody, they want to read the books of some exclusive group of people, that's up to you, wherever you live. I'm not going to be the one to argue with you. I'm not going to be the one to disrespect what you're following. But you, or any group of you, you're not going to dictate the policies of my people, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, my children, or myself and my generation. Because we've been Muslims, many of us, for at least 60 years. And we're not stupid. We're not donkeys, and we're not monkeys. So nobody's going to ride us. Nobody's going to cage us. Nobody's going to just feed us something and fool us because we're mature. So let's make that point clear, brothers and sisters. Don't read into what I got to say any more than what I said. You got some arguments about what I said? You get a page. You make your arguments. I'm not answering any questions about what I said because I'm saying what I'm saying on my platform. You can listen, you can agree, or you can disagree. But I'm not here to defend what I got to say. I'm not here to argue back and forth with somebody else's interpretation. I'm making my statement for my people, especially the revert Muslims. For my generation, for my children, for my grandchildren, for my great-grandchildren, and in our country, and for Muslims who are living as minorities, and especially Muslims who are reverts all over the world. We don't have any religious masters. Thank you, but no thank you. If we did that before, that was because we were naive. We didn't know. We were immature. So we could be taken advantage of. We could be indoctrinated, and we were. But the ball stops here. Except for people who are ignorant and who are not aware of what they have. Because anybody who's ignorant and don't know what they have, they might give it away to anybody, including their freedom to think. So that's my statement, brothers and sisters, tonight on my platform, my Facebook Live, Sky Views platform. This is Sheikh Khalid Yassin speaking to you on the subject of no Muslim group or government has the right to impose their Islamic narrative on any other Muslims in the world. Thank you. Have a great day. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.